So the annual wages decision for 2023 has been handed down. Now, what are the implications for your business? So the annual wage review decision was announced on 2nd of June 2023, and it's effective from the first full pay period commencing on or after 1st of July 2023. And that's great, but what does it actually mean? How does it affect your business? Well, the Commission has decided to increase the minimum wages in all modern awards by 5.75%, which is quite high. So inflation's running roughly at 7%. Minimum wages in all modern awards are being increased by 5.75%. Now, what you'll hear though is that we've seen a wage increase of 8.65%. And now this has got to do with different classifications within the awards, and basically the Commission is aligning those. And effectively what it means is that minimum wage increase has gone from $21.38 per hour to $23.23 per hour, which is an increase of 8.65%. Now that's pretty staggering. That is a big increase, and one would argue that, okay, it matches the cost of living, inflation, 7%, but it's a cost to the employer. And now what's the effect of that going to be? So who are these Fair Work people? So Fair Work Commission is an independent statutory body. They're responsible for setting minimum wages and maintaining fair and balanced industrial relations framework. So how do they do that? So during that process, they take into account things such as the state of the economy, productivity, what living standards are, and the needs of those lower paid workers. And so it's supposed to be a fair and equitable review, and there's a process behind it. Now, they are accountable to it. So they try and get a balance between fair wages for employees and also the capacity of businesses to pay those wages. Whether they've actually achieved that outcome, that's interesting. I'd like to hear your comments. Let us know in the comments below whether you think that the Fair Work Commission has actually achieved fair balance between the needs of employees and the capacity of business owners to pay those extra wages. So let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear your opinion on this. So the annual wage review, it takes into account a lot of the different factors, and it is an annual process, so it is reviewed. Yet to see wages actually be reduced, yet to see minimum wages be reduced. But the key things here, 5.75% increase in all modern awards. And that means that minimum wage has gone from $21.38 to $23.23. When does it actually start? So the 1st of July 2023, the first full pay period commencing on or after 1st of July 2023. So if you've got a pay period commencing the last week of June, but you're paid in July, that won't be applicable. The wage increase won't apply to that pay run, but the first pay period commencing after the 1st of July 2023 is when that minimum wage will apply. Now, who does it apply to? So this is where we're talking about this whole idea of modern awards, and it might be a concept that you're not familiar with, but basically the awards are a set of rules in very simple terms that govern the employee-employer relationship in different industry sectors, specifying things about terms and conditions of employment, minimum standards, minimum wages, wage rates depending on qualifications. So the Fair Work Commission have come out and said that as at May 2021, only about 20.5% of the employee workforce was actually paid at rates specified in modern awards. So only about 1/5. 1 in 5 employees are paid at rates specified in the modern awards. So what does that actually mean? So employees who are reliant on those modern awards for their pay, on average, they tend to be paid a lot less than people who are not on awards. So the average hourly wage for somebody on an award is about $28.60. Now that compares to an average of $46.20 per hour for somebody who's not on an award, or not on the minimum of an award. So a lot of people are actually paid above award wages. And what is also common is that a lot of those people who are on modern awards or the low rate of pay actually work less hours. So we see a lot more casual employments or a lot more part-time employment arrangements affected by awards and minimum wages. And if we look at that, which industries are most affected? So if we have a look at this, there shouldn't be really any surprises here. And so the big 5 or 6 here are general retail, general retail, okay, and that's not surprising. A lot of casuals, a lot of part-times. We've got the Social Community Home Care Disability Services Award. So again, a lot of part-time casual staff. Hospitality, once again, casual, part-time. Fast food industry, part-time, casual. Restaurant award industry, part-time, casual. Children's services. They are the ones, which is about 50% of employees on awards, on the modern awards, are in those 5 to 6 sectors. No surprise there, really. Okay, so a lot of part-time employees, a lot of casuals, specified minimum rates of pay. So a lot of those industries will be affected. So the big ones there, the ones most affected, retail, social and community services, hospitality, fast food, restaurant, children's services. No surprises about which of those industries have the most affected by the awards. Now, interestingly, within industries, what proportion of people are actually employed on awards? And again, we have accommodation and food services, retail, recreation, so a lot of tourism there, and administrative and support services. And we've had this thing called other services, which is where everything else has been thrown into a bucket. And of those people, roughly, they're quite a high proportion are actually on modern awards, and they are the ones that don't really fit other classifications. So here's the table. So we're looking at, within the accommodation and food services industry, almost 60% of employees are on awards. So these minimum wage rates affect those industries very significantly. Looking down at retail, again, it's pretty high. Admin, support, social services, pretty high there. What we're seeing is, as we come down more into your services, your professional services, your technology, information, media, less reliance on awards, lesser reliance on the modern awards and the minimum wages from the awards. So it was an interesting statement, and I'm not sure that I actually agree with this. Actually, I'm going to come out and say I don't actually agree with this, but let me know how you feel about it. What are your thoughts? Fair Work has said that because of the negligible proportion of the workforce which national minimum wage applies, this outcome won't have any discernible macroeconomic effects. It's not going to have wide-ranging effects on the industry, wide-ranging effects on the economy or employers in general. I disagree. I think that's not correct. I'm predicting that we're going to see wages growth across a lot more industries, and I'm going to explain why I believe that's the case. And look, I guess that's in contrast to what they've come out and said, and maybe they've got more research, but I'm yet to see anything that's going to support their argument. The anecdotal evidence I've got from talking to employers and hearing from various employees in different areas, professional services, I think this is actually going to have a more wide-ranging effect and impact, and we're going to see some consequences as a result. But look, if you disagree with me, that's great. Let me know in the comments, or if you agree with me, let me know as well, because I'd love to get your feedback on this and see, am I correct? Okay, so let's have a think about this. How does this recent decision to increase minimum wages by 5.75% compare to what we know? So if we go back to the pre-pandemic, pre-COVID period, so 2019, early 2020, wages growth was pretty modest. Okay, so we're looking at annual wage increases ranging somewhere between 2%, 2.5%, and remember, inflation was often below 2%. So modest wage increases were what we were experiencing. And in fact, in a lot of industries, there was no wage increase for a time period. So modest increases compared to what we've got now. Now, what we saw in those periods was we had a lot of slow economic growth, underemployment, a wage stagnation. So not a lot of increase in wages in that period. So we didn't have a lot of growth in wages. So and that's why we had this modest level of 2 to 2.5%. So 5.75% is quite a significant jump from that. And in fact, if we look at the real terms when we smooth out the classifications, 8.65%, that's a pretty high wage increase. So that is how it compares. Now, here's where my prediction is that we're going to have some flow-on effects affecting other aspects of your business and the costs for you as an employer. So wages growth increased wages costs. So there are some flow-on effects because certain costs are impacted by the amount of wages you pay. Okay, certain costs are impacted, and one of those is superannuation guarantee. So on the 1st of July 2023, the superannuation contributions rate increases from 10.5% to 11%. And that's affected by your wages. The second thing there is workers' compensation premiums are based on the level of wages, superannuation and employee benefits that you provide. And if those wages are going up by 5.75 or 8.6% on average, then your workers' compensation premiums are going to go up by the same amount because they are calculated based on your wages, superannuation, fringe benefits, employee benefits, basically. So same there is state-based payroll taxes. So payroll tax, once you become above the threshold, your payroll tax is based on the level of wages. Now, I am guessing that some employers are going to be tipped over that payroll tax threshold because of these wages growth. That is a prediction of mine that some employers will now be in that payroll tax regime because they've been tipped over the threshold because we have the 5.75% in wages increase and increase in superannuation guarantee at the same time. So that will have a flow-on effect for the 2025 financial year. So be wary of that and just monitor your wages because if you do, if you have been tipped over the threshold for payroll tax, you should register now and avoid a few nasty letters in the future. So make sure, keep an eye on that, check your wages levels. Now, the other thing that comes into play here is that is a 5.75% increase in minimum wage. And we looked at those industries that are most affected, so retail, hospitality, food, accommodation, social services, healthcare, aged services. A lot of employees in those industries are casual or part-time, but a lot of casual employees. Now, under the casual employment, you are paid a casual loading of 25%. So that 5.75% increase actually becomes bigger when you look at a casual employee. Okay, that casual employee's wages have gone up by 5.75%, but it's actually quite a significant increase because we're looking at the 25% casual loading, particularly across industries like retail, hospitality, food, accommodation. Those industries are still recovering from the last couple of years of pandemic, so this is going to have an impact on them as well. Also factor in leave loading at 17.5% on annual leave if that applies, which it should. If anybody's on a modern-based award where they're getting paid the minimum wage, the leave loading will apply on annual leave. So that's an additional cost to the employer. So there are some flow-on effects. Now, what about people not covered by awards? So what is the implication? So these are people who are not covered by awards but have individual employment contracts or agreements in place. Now, my prediction here is that because of the wage decision and people on minimum wages getting a 5.75% increase, these people who are not on awards but are on individual employment contracts are going to look at that and say, hey, 5.75% increase in wages, I deserve that too. So they're going to come to the negotiating table and ask for an increase in wages, and they're going to be looking for a minimum of that. So be warned that you are going to have those conversations with employees. So you may want to prepare for that and think, well, how am I going to handle the situation when my employee comes to me and requests a pay rise based on this national wage review? So what are you going to do to prepare for that? Okay, can you afford it? And we have a look at that as well. So how do you respond? Okay, well, some of the things you need to do are pretty immediate. You're going to have to update your payroll systems and make sure that you do comply with the new minimum wage rates. So you need to be aware of what they are. Review them, update your employment arrangements. You may need to update some contracts. Maybe you should get some advice from a human resources professional or business lawyer on that, whether you need to. It's always a good time to periodically review your employment arrangements and processes and the documentation you have in place, but you will need to update or make sure your payroll systems are updated. One for the minimum wage and two for the superannuation guarantee increase, which any modern payroll system should have that automatically applied in there, and making sure that you are compliant with the increases, making sure that you've got the documentation in place. So the wage increase is going to have a financial impact on businesses. It's going to increase labour costs, particularly those industries that we have a high proportion of minimum wage employees. And we're looking at retail, we're looking at food, accommodation, restaurants, aged services, health services. A lot of those industries are going to be affected here. So it's going to have a financial impact on labour costs. So as a business owner, you need to evaluate your financial budgets, your forecasts, and consider whether you need to adjust your pricing. Can you increase your prices? Will your customers pay an increased amount? Okay, are they in a position to do that? Or do you need to reassess how productive you are? Can you improve the efficiency of your operations so you can avoid increasing your labour costs? It might mean that some businesses will have to cut back on casual labour. They may have to cut back on casual labour and instead employ additional or alternative ways of producing. Okay, whatever your outcome is, you need to have a strategy in place on how you're going to manage these increased labour costs. Okay, how are you going to manage those increased labour costs in your business to maintain your profitability, but also maintain your working relationship with your employees and your customers as well? You need to continue to provide service to your customers. And how are you going to do that? Second thing you need to do is communicate. Engage with your employees and communicate with them and let them know how this affects them, okay, and how you're going to be addressing it, okay. Let them know. Look, if you don't communicate with employees, there's often an uncertainty that creeps in that sort of leads to an erosion of your employee morale. Make sure that you address any concerns that arise up front and maintain that positive work environment. Which is always important when you've got a time of change or significant impact here, which is what we've got. You know, it's quite a significant increase in wages. Okay, so your action plan, 5 steps in your action plan. We're going to go through those 5 steps in your action plan responding to the annual wage review. Okay, so the first one is determine the employees where you're required to increase their wages rate. Determine which employees are affected or impacted where you have an obligation to increase their wages. Make sure that you update your payroll system. So number 2, update your payroll systems to make sure that you capture the new wages rates. Number 3 is communicate with your employees, address their concerns, make sure that they know that you are aware that the increases apply and that you've actually put in place the procedures to make sure that you are paying them correctly. Okay, because you want to avoid that conflict, that tension and concern that, hey, there's been this pay rise announced by the Fair Work Commission. Is my employer actually going to implement it correctly? So communicate with your employees. Review your financial budgets and forecast. How is this going to affect your financial profitability and your cash flow? So time to review your budgets and forecasts is now. Ideally, it matches with the end of financial year, and you should be planning for the following 12 months as a minimum and setting in place budgets and forecasts for the coming 12-month period. Make sure that you update your forecast for wages expenditure and the on-costs, taking into account the minimum wage rate increase, but also if you've got non-award employees, that flow-on effect where you're likely to have to pay increased wages to, basically to retain those employees, and often the case that your key employees may be worth more, it's a cost that you need to bear because you want to maintain those key employees, particularly if they're a key contributor to your success as a business owner. So make sure you review your budgets and forecasts, and then as a result of that, consider adjusting your prices or whether you need to change your strategy and your processes to be more productive, more effective. Okay, we need to manage these increased labor costs, but at the same time, we want to make sure that we're not reducing our profits. As business owners, we want to make sure we're maintaining our profitability. We have to implement these wages increases, but we need to make sure that we maintain profitability of our businesses. Okay. At the end of the day, you go into business to make a profit. So let's make sure that we adjust our prices or our productivity or both, and maintain our profits. Okay, so a 5-point action plan. Just recapping, 5 points. Responding to the minimum wage increase from the National Wage Review or the Annual Wage Review. So 1, make sure you identify which employees that the wage increase applies to, update your payroll systems, communicate with your employees, and review your budgets and forecasts. And then lastly, consider adjusting your prices or your productivity operational strategies to manage the increased labour costs and maintain your profit. So what are your thoughts on this? Is it a fair increase? Is it too much? Does it mean that you're not going to be able to employ more staff? Are you going to need to cut back? How's it going to affect your business? Well, we'd love to know. Share your thoughts by putting a comment below. Share that with us, and we'd love to hear what your concerns are and what you're going to be doing in response to the National Wage Review and the increase to minimum wages. Are you going to be looking at some alternatives to employing additional staff? Be interested to know what you've got in mind there. So let us know, share your comments. And look, this is where we can help you. So if you need help in adjusting your business strategy, your processes to respond to this, or even to respond to what's been going on in the last couple of years, but if you're at a point now where you need to make some changes to your business and you want to see how that is actually going to take effect and how you can really improve the profitability of your business, then this is where we can help. So as accountants, business advisors, we've got the experience working with a range of clients across the industries through various situations, and we can help you put in place the right strategy to one, make sure you comply with your obligations, but two, strategies to help you grow your business and increase your profits, and then give you that freedom, knowing that you've complied, you've got everything in place, no risks there, but you're also making profit at the same time. So reach out to us, get in touch with us, follow us on social media, and look, if there's a question that you've got, put it in the comments below, and we'd love to get in touch with you.